I thought I knew my sister Serafina. 28 years of shared birthdays, family vacations, and late-night conversations had built what I believed was an unbreakable bond. But standing in my childhood kitchen, staring at the bank statements scattered across the granite countertop, I realized I had been living with a stranger. The numbers did not lie. $50,000 missing from our recently deceased mother's estate, all traced back to accounts bearing my sister's signature. What hurt most was not just the theft, but discovering she had been planning this betrayal for months, while comforting me through our grief. Before we dive into this family nightmare that changed everything I thought I knew about blood loyalty, I want to hear from you, amazing viewers. Drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. I love connecting with people all over the world. And if you're ready for a story that will make you question everything about family trust, smash that like button and hit subscribe, because this tale of sisterly betrayal and ultimate justice will leave you speechless. 3 months earlier, everything seemed normal. Mom had passed away peacefully in February after her long battle with cancer, and Sarah had been my rock throughout those final weeks. She handled all the funeral arrangements while I was too devastated to function properly. She coordinated with the lawyers, managed the estate paperwork, and even helped me sort through Mom's belongings. I was grateful to have such a caring, responsible sister during the darkest time of my life. The first red flag should have been how quickly Sarah volunteered to handle all the financial aspects of Mom's estate. She insisted I should focus on healing while she took care of the boring paperwork. As the older sister by 4 years, she had always been protective, so her take-charge attitude seemed natural. She assured me that Mom's house would sell quickly in the hot market and we would split everything 50-50 as stated in the will. But something felt off when Sarah kept postponing our meetings to go over the estate details. Every time I asked about the house sale or when we could expect to receive our inheritance, she had excuses. The market was slow, the lawyers were backlogged, or potential buyers were being picky. Meanwhile, I noticed she had upgraded her wardrobe significantly, driving a new BMW instead of her old Honda, and posting Instagram photos from expensive restaurants I knew she could never afford on her teacher's salary. The breaking point came when I planned my first vacation since Mom's death. After months of depression and grief, my therapist encouraged me to take a healing trip to Europe that I had always dreamed about with Mom. I mentioned my plans to Sarah during our weekly coffee date, explaining how I needed this time away to process everything and start rebuilding my life. She smiled and nodded supportively, even helping me research flights and hotels. 2 days before my departure, Sarah called with an emergency. Her babysitter had canceled, and she desperately needed someone to watch her twin boys for the weekend. She knew about my trip, knew how important it was for my mental health, but somehow expected me to sacrifice my healing journey for her convenience. When I gently reminded her about my flight, she exploded. "Family comes first. Remember, Mom always said we should prioritize each other above everything else. This trip can wait, but my children cannot," she argued, using our mother's memory as emotional manipulation. Her tone was cold, calculating, and completely unlike the supportive sister who had held me while I cried at Mom's funeral. That night, unable to sleep and disturbed by Sarah's behavior, I decided to check on the estate paperwork myself. Mom had always been organized, keeping important documents in her home office filing cabinet. Using my spare key, I drove to the house that was supposedly still on the market but showed no "for sale" sign in the yard. Inside the house was completely different. All of Mom's furniture remained, but expensive new items had been added: a 75-inch television, new leather furniture, and high-end kitchen appliances. Someone was clearly living there, and that someone had to be Sarah. The master bedroom contained her clothes, her books, and photos of her family, as if they had moved in permanently. But the real shock came when I found the filing cabinet unlocked and half empty. Mom's meticulous financial records were missing, but I discovered copies of bank statements that made my blood run cold. Our joint estate account showed a balance of $12,000 instead of the $62,000 that should have been there after Mom's final expenses. $50,000 had been systematically withdrawn over the past 3 months, with each withdrawal authorized by Sarah's signature as co-executor. Further digging revealed that Mom's house had actually sold within 2 weeks of listing for $420,000, well above asking price. The proceeds should have been split between us, but instead, Sarah had used her position as co-executor to redirect everything into accounts under her sole control. She had been living in our childhood home rent-free while telling me it was still for sale, using our inheritance to fund her upgraded lifestyle. The paperwork trail was devastating. Sarah had forged my signature on several documents claiming I had agreed to let her handle all financial decisions during my emotional instability period following Mom's death. She had convinced the lawyers that I was too grief-stricken to participate in estate matters, painting herself as the responsible sister protecting her unstable sibling. But what hurt most was discovering a handwritten note in Mom's Bible dated just 1 week before her death. In shaky handwriting, Mom had expressed concerns about Sarah's financial requests during her illness, mentioning how Sarah had asked for loans and seemed unusually interested in the estate planning details. Mom had planned to discuss these concerns with me, but passed away before she could reveal her suspicions about her eldest daughter's motives. Standing in that kitchen at 2 a.m, surrounded by evidence of my sister's betrayal, I felt the ground shift beneath everything I thought I knew about family loyalty. The woman who had comforted me through our mother's death had been systematically stealing from both of us, using my grief as a shield for her calculated theft. She had exploited my trust, my emotional vulnerability, and our mother's memory to fund her selfish desires. The next morning, I canceled my healing trip to Europe, but not for the reasons Sarah expected. Instead of babysitting her children, I was going to war against the sister who had destroyed everything sacred about our family bond. This was no longer about money. This was about justice, accountability, and ensuring that Mom's final wishes were honored despite Sarah's elaborate deception. The hardest part about confronting family betrayal is the moment you realize that everything you believed about someone was carefully constructed fiction. Sarah had spent months perfecting her victim narrative, positioning herself as the overwhelmed single mother struggling to handle our family crisis while protecting her emotionally fragile sister. But now I held the truth in my hands, and I was done being the naive younger sibling who trusted blindly. My first step was documenting everything before Sarah could destroy the evidence. I spent the entire night photographing bank statements, forged documents, and receipts that showed how she had spent our inheritance. Every luxury purchase, every expensive dinner, every item that had upgraded her lifestyle while she told me we needed to wait for the estate to settle was carefully cataloged. I even found contractor receipts showing she had renovated Mom's kitchen and master bathroom using inheritance money, treating our family home like her personal investment property. The next morning, I called Sarah back about the babysitting request. Instead of explaining why I could not help, I told her I would come over to discuss it in person. I wanted to look her in the eyes when I confronted her with the truth to see if any part of the sister I once loved still existed beneath the layers of deception and greed. Sarah greeted me at her apartment door with fake warmth, immediately launching into a lengthy explanation about her babysitting emergency and how grateful she was that I was being reasonable about changing my travel plans. She had prepared an entire guilt trip speech about family responsibility and how Mom would have wanted us to support each other through difficult times. Listening to her manipulate our mother's memory while knowing what she had done felt like being stabbed repeatedly. "Before we talk about babysitting, I need to show you something," I said, pulling out printed copies of the bank statements. "I went to Mom's house last night and found some interesting paperwork." The change in Sarah's expression was immediate and unmistakable. The fake maternal concern disappeared, replaced by the calculating look of someone whose elaborate scheme was crumbling. She did not even try to deny it. Instead, she launched into an attack designed to make me question my own perceptions of reality. "You went through Mom's things without permission. That house belongs to both of us, and I have been taking care of everything while you were too depressed to function," she snapped, trying to flip the narrative and make me the villain for discovering her crimes. But I was prepared for her manipulation tactics. "The house was sold 3 months ago for $420,000. You have been living there rent-free while telling me it was still on the market. You withdrew $50,000 from our estate account without my knowledge or consent, and you forged my signature on legal documents to make yourself the sole decision-maker for Mom's estate." Sarah's face went through a series of expressions, surprise that I had uncovered so much anger at being caught, and finally a cold calculation as she decided how to handle this confrontation. What she said next revealed the depth of her betrayal and her complete lack of remorse for what she had done to our family. "You think you deserve half of everything. You disappeared for weeks after the funeral, leaving me to handle all the difficult decisions and paperwork. I had to take time off work, hire babysitters for my kids, and deal with lawyers and real estate agents while you were playing the grieving daughter. That money compensated me for doing all the work you were too weak to handle." Her words hit like physical blows, but they also crystallized my resolve. Sarah genuinely believed she was entitled to steal from me because she viewed my grief as a character flaw rather than a natural response to losing our mother. She had calculated every aspect of her theft using my emotional state as justification for her criminal behavior. "You forged my signature, Sarah. You lied to lawyers and told them I was incompetent to participate in estate decisions. You lived in Mom's house while telling me it was for sale. This is not about work compensation. This is theft, fraud, and elder abuse since you started manipulating Mom before she died." That accusation triggered something explosive in Sarah's demeanor. She started screaming about how ungrateful I was, how she had protected me from the stress of estate management, and how I was being dramatic over financial technicalities. But her rage only confirmed what I already suspected: she had no intention of returning the stolen money or acknowledging any wrongdoing. "Fine," she said, crossing her arms with defiant satisfaction. "Take me to court then, but you will need proof that I did anything wrong, and good luck getting lawyers to believe your conspiracy theories over my documented evidence showing you were too unstable to handle estate matters. I have been building my case for months while you were wallowing in self-pity." Her confidence was chilling because it revealed the calculated nature of her betrayal. Sarah had not acted impulsively or out of temporary financial desperation. She had constructed an elaborate long-term plan to steal from our family while positioning herself as the responsible sister, protecting her mentally unstable sibling. She had manipulated our mother's final months, exploited my grief, and perverted our entire family relationship into a criminal enterprise. But Sarah had made one crucial mistake in her planning. She had underestimated my determination and overestimated her own cleverness. While she had been busy spending stolen money and perfecting her victim narrative, I had been quietly building relationships with people who could expose her lies and help me seek justice for what she had done to our family. That afternoon, I made my first call to Mom's attorney, David Martinez, who had handled the estate paperwork. When I explained my discoveries and concerns about forged signatures and unauthorized withdrawals, his immediate response confirmed my worst fears about Sarah's behavior during the estate process. "I was wondering when you would contact me directly," he said gravely. "Your sister insisted you were too emotionally unstable to participate in any legal proceedings, but some of her requests seemed unusual. I have been hoping you would reach out so we could discuss the estate settlement properly." Within 2 hours, I was sitting in Martinez's office reviewing every document Sarah had submitted on my behalf. The forged signatures were obvious when compared to my actual handwriting, and the psychological evaluation she had provided claiming I was incompetent had never been authorized by me or conducted by any licensed professional. Sarah had literally fabricated evidence of my mental instability to justify stealing my inheritance. This constitutes fraud, identity theft, and potentially elder abuse if she began manipulating your mother before her death, Martinez explained. "I should have insisted on speaking with you directly, but your sister was very convincing about your emotional state and provided what appeared to be legitimate documentation of your incapacity." That evening, I made a decision that would change everything between Sarah and me forever. Instead of confronting her privately or hoping she would voluntarily return the stolen money, I was going to expose her crimes publicly and pursue every legal remedy available. She had gambled that my love for our family would prevent me from taking action that might embarrass or harm her, but she had miscalculated the depth of my commitment to justice and accountability. The moment I decided to fight back, I realized I could not win this battle alone. Sarah had spent months building her narrative and establishing relationships that supported her version of events. while I had isolated myself in grief. But what she had not anticipated was how her own behavior had created potential allies who were already suspicious of her motives and methods. My first strategic move was reconnecting with Mom's longtime financial advisor, Patricia Williams, who had worked with our family for over 15 years. Patricia had known both Sarah and me since we were teenagers, and she had been uncomfortably surprised by some of Sarah's financial requests during Mom's final illness. When I called to discuss my concerns about the estate handling, Patricia immediately agreed to meet. "Your sister contacted me multiple times asking about your mother's investment accounts and life insurance policies," Patricia revealed during our coffee meeting. She claimed she was helping organize the estate paperwork, but some of her questions seemed more focused on finding assets that might not be immediately visible to other family members. Patricia's observations painted a disturbing picture of Sarah's behavior during Mom's final months. She had been systematically gathering information about every financial account, insurance policy, and investment our mother owned, often claiming she needed the information to help with taxes or update beneficiary information. Patricia had grown increasingly uncomfortable with these requests, but had trusted Sarah's explanations about managing family finances during a difficult time. "I should have insisted on speaking directly with your mother about some of these requests, but your sister assured me that discussing finances would be too stressful for someone in her condition," Patricia admitted. "Looking back, I realize she may have been isolating your mother from people who might have questioned her activities." This revelation led to my second major discovery about the depth of Sarah's manipulation. I decided to contact Mom's primary care physician, Dr. Susan Roberts, who had treated our mother throughout her cancer battle. Dr. Roberts remembered both of us well and was happy to discuss Mom's final months when I explained my concerns about potential elder abuse. "Your sister was very involved in your mother's medical care, which initially seemed wonderful," Dr. Roberts said carefully. "But towards the end, she began asking unusual questions about your mother's mental capacity and whether her condition might affect her ability to make sound financial decisions." Dr. Roberts explained that Sarah had specifically inquired about getting documentation of Mom's diminished capacity for estate planning purposes, claiming that family members were concerned about Mom making impulsive financial decisions during her illness. When Dr. Roberts had suggested that Mom seemed mentally sharp despite her physical decline, Sarah had pushed for cognitive testing that might reveal decision-making impairments. "Your mother was concerned about these requests," Dr. Roberts revealed. "She mentioned that your sister had been pressuring her to make changes to her will and had suggested that you might not be emotionally stable enough to handle inheritance responsibilities. Your mother found these conversations distressing and asked me whether her illness might be affecting her judgment about family dynamics." This information was devastating because it revealed that Mom had died knowing something was wrong with Sarah's behavior but had been too sick and confused to take protective action. Sarah had exploited our mother's vulnerability and physical weakness to plant seeds of doubt about my stability while positioning herself as the responsible daughter who should control family finances. Armed with these insights, I reached out to other family members who might have witnessed Sarah's suspicious behavior. Our cousin Marcus, who had helped with funeral arrangements, remembered being surprised by how quickly Sarah had taken control of all estate matters and how she had discouraged other family members from offering assistance with paperwork or financial decisions. "She kept saying you were too fragile to deal with practical matters and that she needed to protect you from additional stress," Marcus recalled. "But when I offered to help review legal documents or handle some of the administrative work, she always had reasons why outside help was not necessary. It seemed like she wanted to control every aspect of the estate process." Marcus also remembered Sarah making comments about how inheritance money might be wasted if not managed properly and how some people were not responsible enough to handle large sums of money without guidance. At the time, these comments had seemed like general observations, but in context, they revealed Sarah's calculated campaign to justify stealing from me by portraying me as incompetent and irresponsible. The most valuable ally I gained during this period was Mom's neighbor, elderly Mrs. Thompson, who had maintained a close friendship with our mother for over 20 years. Mrs. Thompson had observed Sarah's behavior during Mom's final months and had grown increasingly concerned about what she witnessed during her regular visits. Your sister started controlling who could visit your mother and when, Mrs. Thompson explained when I visited her modest apartment. She told me that too many visitors were exhausting your mother and that family meetings about estate planning were too emotionally demanding for someone in her condition. But Mrs. Thompson had continued making brief visits when Sarah was not present. And during these conversations, Mom had expressed growing anxiety about financial pressures and family dynamics she could not fully understand. Most importantly, Mrs. Thompson had been present during one conversation where Mom had explicitly stated her intention to split everything equally between her daughters and had expressed confusion about why Sarah kept suggesting alternative arrangements. Your mother was worried about something, but she was too sick to investigate her concerns properly, Mrs. Thompson said sadly. She mentioned that your sister had been asking her to sign papers and make financial decisions quickly, claiming that delays might cause problems with taxes or estate planning. These conversations with family friends and healthcare providers painted a clear picture of elder abuse and financial manipulation that extended far beyond simple theft. Sarah had systematically isolated our mother from people who might have questioned her activities, manipulated medical professionals to support her narrative about family instability, and pressured a dying woman to make financial decisions that benefited only her own interests. By the end of that week, I had assembled a network of witnesses who could testify to Sarah's suspicious behavior, forged documents proving her criminal activities and professional opinions from lawyers and financial advisors, confirming that her actions constituted multiple felonies. But I also realized that confronting Sarah directly had been a tactical error because it had given her time to prepare her defenses and potentially destroy additional evidence. However, my alliance-building efforts had revealed something else crucial about Sarah's criminal activities. She had not just stolen from our immediate family. She had also manipulated other relationships and financial arrangements in ways that had created additional victims who might be willing to support legal action against her. The most shocking revelation came from Patricia, who mentioned that Sarah had attempted to access Mom's life insurance payout by claiming that I had formally renounced my beneficiary rights due to emotional instability. Only the insurance company's requirement for notarized documentation had prevented this theft, but Sarah's attempt revealed the ambitious scope of her criminal planning. She submitted a letter claiming to be from you, stating that you felt too overwhelmed by grief to handle insurance proceeds and wanted your sister to manage everything on your behalf, Patricia explained. When the insurance company requested verification, she provided the same psychological evaluation documents she had used with the estate attorney. This discovery meant that Sarah's crimes extended beyond the $50,000 I had already documented. She had attempted to steal an additional $150,000 in life insurance benefits and had only been thwarted by corporate policies requiring independent verification of beneficiary changes. Her criminal enterprise was far more extensive and calculated than I had initially realized. Standing in my apartment that Friday evening, surrounded by evidence of my sister's betrayal and supported by a growing network of people who had witnessed her manipulation tactics, I felt ready for the next phase of seeking justice. But I also realized that Sarah's response to my initial confrontation suggested she had her own allies and defensive strategies prepared for this battle. The war between us was just beginning, and I could not predict how far she would go to protect her stolen lifestyle or what additional crimes she might commit to avoid accountability for her actions. But for the first time since discovering her betrayal, I felt confident that truth and justice would ultimately prevail over lies and manipulation, no matter how cleverly constructed her deceptions might be. Just when I thought I had built an unshakable foundation for my case against Sarah, the ground shifted beneath me in the most devastating way possible. The betrayal came from someone I had grown to trust completely during our weeks of building evidence together, someone whose support had become crucial to my emotional survival during this nightmare. Marcus had been my rock throughout the investigation, spending countless hours helping me organize documents, contact witnesses, and prepare for legal proceedings. His outrage at Sarah's behavior had seemed genuine, and his offers to testify on my behalf had strengthened my resolve to pursue justice. We had developed what felt like a genuine partnership built on shared family values and mutual respect for our deceased aunt's memory. That sense of security crumbled on a Tuesday morning when my attorney David Martinez called with devastating news that changed everything about my case and my understanding of family loyalty. "I received some disturbing information yesterday that we need to discuss immediately," Martinez said, his voice carrying an ominous tone I had never heard before. "Marcus contacted my office and provided testimony that contradicts several key elements of your allegations against your sister." The words hit me like a physical blow, but Martinez's explanation of what Marcus had told his office was even worse than I could have imagined. According to Marcus's new testimony, I had been the one pressuring our dying mother about financial matters, demanding immediate access to estate funds and displaying erratic behavior that had concerned multiple family members. He claims that your sister was actually protecting your mother from your financial demands and that the estate documents were signed willingly by your mother after she expressed concerns about your emotional stability and spending habits. Martinez continued grimly. "He has provided what appears to be a recorded conversation where your mother discusses her worries about your mental state." I felt the room spinning as Martinez explained that Marcus had also claimed the bank statements I had discovered were actually evidence of Sarah's responsible financial management, not theft. According to his new version of events, Mom had asked Sarah to control the estate funds because she was worried about my ability to handle money responsibly during my grief period. "This testimony directly contradicts everything you have told me and undermines the entire foundation of our case," Martinez said carefully. "If Marcus testifies to these claims in court, it will be extremely difficult to prove fraud or forgery, especially since he is presenting himself as an objective family member who witnessed your interactions with your mother firsthand." The betrayal was devastating, but what made it unbearable was realizing that Marcus's defection was not spontaneous. It was clearly orchestrated and probably financially motivated. Sarah had somehow gotten to him, offering him something valuable enough to make him willing to destroy his own cousin's pursuit of justice and perjure himself in legal proceedings. That afternoon, I confronted Marcus, directly calling him and demanding an explanation for his sudden change in testimony. His response revealed the calculated nature of his betrayal and the extent of Sarah's strategic planning to undermine my case. "I have been thinking about everything more carefully, and I realized that my initial impressions might have been influenced by your emotional presentation of the facts," Marcus said with practiced detachment. "After reviewing the situation objectively, I believe your sister was actually acting in the family's best interests." But when I pressed him about specific conversations we had shared and evidence we had reviewed together, Marcus's explanations became increasingly contradictory and defensive. He could not explain why his objective review had led him to completely reverse his understanding of documented financial crimes, or why he had waited weeks to share his concerns about my version of events. "Sarah helped me understand some things about your behavior during Mom's illness that I had not fully appreciated before," Marcus admitted, inadvertently revealing that Sarah had indeed contacted him and influenced his decision to switch sides. The conversation deteriorated quickly as I realized that Marcus had not just betrayed me, he had been actively working with Sarah to undermine my case, possibly for weeks, before revealing his change in position. His questions about my legal strategy, his access to evidence I had shared with him, and his detailed knowledge of my attorney's plans had all been reported back to Sarah, allowing her to prepare countermeasures for every move I had planned to make. "You told her everything, did not you?" I confronted him directly. "Every conversation we had, every piece of evidence I shared, every strategy my attorney discussed with you as a potential witness, you reported it all back to Sarah so she could prepare her defense." Marcus's silence confirmed my worst suspicions about his duplicity, but his next words revealed something even more disturbing about the depth of this conspiracy against me. "Your sister is offering to settle this matter quietly if you are willing to accept a reasonable compromise," Marcus said, clearly delivering a prepared message. "She understands that you feel entitled to more money, but fighting this in court will be expensive and embarrassing for everyone involved." The settlement offer was insulting and revealed Sarah's continued belief that she could manipulate me into accepting her theft. She was offering to return $15,000 of the $50,000 she had stolen, claiming this represented my fair share after accounting for her work managing the estate and caring for Mom during her final illness. but the offer also revealed something crucial about Sarah's strategic thinking. She was genuinely worried about going to court despite Marcus's betrayal and her apparent confidence in her legal position. Her willingness to negotiate suggested that she knew her fabricated evidence might not withstand serious legal scrutiny, especially if I could find other witnesses to corroborate my version of events. That realization gave me the strength to reject her settlement offer and continue fighting for complete justice, despite losing Marcus as an ally and potentially facing him as a hostile witness in any legal proceedings. Tell my sister that I am not interested in compromising with a thief and that I will see her in court, I told Marcus coldly. And tell her that buying family members to lie for her will not save her from the consequences of what she has done to our family. Marcus's betrayal had dealt a serious blow to my case, but it had also clarified something important about the nature of this conflict. This was not just about money or even about Sarah's criminal behavior. This was about whether truth and justice could prevail against calculated manipulation and financial corruption, even when the criminals had more resources and fewer moral constraints than their victims. Over the following days, I watched Marcus's betrayal ripple through our extended family, creating divisions and suspicions that would probably last for generations. Some relatives who had initially supported me began questioning my version of events, while others became more committed to helping me seek justice precisely because they were disgusted by Marcus's mercenary betrayal of family loyalty. But the most devastating aspect of Marcus's defection was realizing that I could no longer trust anyone completely, even family members who seemed genuinely supportive of my cause. Sarah had demonstrated her ability to corrupt people I had considered absolutely reliable, which meant that any future allies would need to be approached with careful skepticism and strategic caution. Standing alone in my apartment that Friday night, surrounded by evidence of multiple betrayals and facing the prospect of fighting powerful enemies with unlimited resources and flexible morality, I felt more isolated and vulnerable than ever before. But I also felt a crystallizing determination to seek justice, regardless of how many people Sarah could buy or intimidate into supporting her criminal enterprise. The war was far from over, and Sarah's tactical victory through Marcus's betrayal had only strengthened my resolve to expose every aspect of her crimes and ensure that she faced appropriate consequences for what she had done to our family and our mother's memory. Just when Sarah's corruption of Marcus had left me feeling completely isolated and outgunned, an unexpected ally emerged from the most unlikely source. Someone whose professional expertise and unshakable integrity would ultimately prove more valuable than all the family support I had lost. The breakthrough came through Mrs. Thompson, who had mentioned during one of our conversations that Mom had been working with a private financial planner during her final year, someone separate from Patricia Williams, who had been helping with more complex estate and tax planning issues. This advisor, Jennifer Walsh, had apparently developed concerns about some financial irregularities she had noticed in Mom's accounts during their final meetings. When I contacted Jennifer and explained my situation, her immediate response confirmed that my instincts about professional allies were correct. She had been hoping someone from our family would reach out to discuss the unusual activities she had observed in Mom's financial accounts during her final months. Your mother was a meticulous financial planner who kept detailed records of every transaction and investment decision, Jennifer explained during our first meeting. But in her final months, I noticed several large transfers and account changes that did not match her established patterns or her stated intentions for estate planning. Jennifer's professional records painted a devastating picture of Sarah's financial manipulation that went far beyond what I had already discovered. She had documented multiple instances where Sarah had pressured Mom to make immediate financial decisions, claiming that delays would result in tax penalties or legal complications that could reduce the estate's value. Your sister attended several of our meetings and consistently pushed for financial arrangements that would give her more control over your mother's assets, Jennifer recalled. She frequently mentioned concerns about your emotional stability and suggested that your mother should consider protective measures to prevent you from making impulsive financial decisions with your inheritance. But Jennifer's most damaging evidence against Sarah came from detailed notes she had taken during private conversations with Mom when Sarah was not present at their meetings. These notes revealed that Mom had serious doubts about Sarah's financial advice, and had specifically asked Jennifer to ensure that both daughters received equal treatment in all estate planning decisions. Your mother explicitly told me that she wanted everything split equally between you and your sister, regardless of what your sister might suggest about modified arrangements, Jennifer stated firmly. She was concerned that your sister was trying to manipulate her into changing her estate plans and asked me to document her true intentions in case there were any disputes after her death. These professionally documented conversations provided unshakable evidence that Mom had not willingly agreed to give Sarah control over estate funds or supported any arrangement that would reduce my inheritance. Jennifer's contemporaneous notes created during the actual conversations without knowledge of future legal disputes constituted the kind of evidence that could not be dismissed as biased family testimony or fabricated after the fact. But Jennifer's most valuable contribution to my case came from her professional expertise in financial fraud investigation. As a certified forensic accountant with experience in elder abuse cases, she immediately recognized patterns in Sarah's behavior that indicated premeditated financial crime rather than family miscommunication or misunderstanding. The timeline of your sister's actions shows clear evidence of financial predation, Jennifer explained as we reviewed her detailed analysis. She systematically isolated your mother from independent financial advice, pressured her to make quick decisions without proper review, and used emotional manipulation to override your mother's established estate planning preferences. Jennifer's forensic analysis revealed additional crimes I had not yet discovered, including evidence that Sarah had been skimming money from Mom's accounts for over 6 months before Mom's death, not just after. Small transfers disguised as medical expenses or household maintenance had actually been funding Sarah's lifestyle upgrades while our mother was still alive and trusting her eldest daughter to manage her declining financial capacity. Your sister stole approximately $75,000 total, not the $50,000 you initially calculated, Jennifer revealed. The additional $25,000 was taken through incremental theft during your mother's final months, disguised as legitimate elder care expenses. This evidence meant that Sarah's crimes included not just inheritance theft and document fraud, but also elder financial abuse committed against our dying mother, a more serious criminal offense that carried heavier penalties and could not be dismissed as a family dispute over estate interpretation. Jennifer's willingness to testify as a professional witness transformed my legal position completely. Unlike family members who could be bought intimidated or discredited as emotionally biased, Jennifer brought unassailable professional credibility and documented evidence that had been created independently of any family conflicts. I have handled dozens of elder abuse cases, and your sister's behavior follows a textbook pattern of financial predation. Jennifer told my attorney during our joint meeting, "Her actions constitute clear criminal fraud, and I am prepared to provide expert testimony explaining how her systematic manipulation constituted elder abuse under both civil and criminal statutes." Jennifer's involvement also attracted attention from other professionals who had interacted with Sarah during Mom's final months. A social worker from Mom's hospice care team contacted Jennifer after hearing about the investigation, revealing that she had also been concerned about Sarah's controlling behavior and had documented several incidents where Sarah had prevented Mom from speaking privately with healthcare providers or family members. Your sister was very insistent about controlling all communication with your mother and frequently claimed that visitors or phone calls were too stressful for someone in her condition, the social worker Marie Rodriguez explained. But your mother seemed isolated and anxious whenever we observed their interactions, which raised red flags about potential emotional or financial abuse. These professional observations provided additional evidence that Sarah's manipulation had extended beyond financial crimes to include emotional abuse and isolation tactics designed to prevent Mom from seeking help or expressing concerns about her daughter's behavior. But perhaps most importantly, Jennifer's investigation revealed that Sarah had made a crucial mistake in her criminal planning that would ultimately ensure her conviction and complete exposure. In her confidence that family members would never pursue serious legal action against her, Sarah had been careless about hiding digital evidence of her crimes. Jennifer's forensic accounting review uncovered electronic communications between Sarah and various financial institutions where she had explicitly discussed strategies for gaining control over Mom's assets and limiting my access to inheritance funds. These emails and text messages provided direct evidence of premeditated fraud and revealed the calculated nature of her theft in ways that could not be explained away as family misunderstandings. Your sister documented her own criminal planning in electronic communications that she apparently never expected anyone to discover, Jennifer explained with professional satisfaction. These digital records provide smoking gun evidence that will make her conviction inevitable once this case reaches criminal court. Armed with Jennifer's professional expertise, documented evidence, and forensic analysis, I finally felt confident that justice would prevail, regardless of how many family members Sarah could corrupt or intimidate. Professional witnesses with unshakable credibility and independently documented evidence had created a legal foundation that could not be undermined by manipulation, bribery, or emotional appeals. For the first time since discovering Sarah's betrayal, I felt genuinely optimistic about the outcome of this battle, and confident that Mom's true wishes would be honored despite everything Sarah had done to subvert justice and exploit our family's grief for her own selfish purposes. The courtroom was packed with family members, professional witnesses, and curious observers who had heard about the dramatic case of sisterly betrayal that had torn apart what appeared to be a respectable middle-class family. 6 months after discovering Sarah's theft, I finally sat across from her at the plaintiff's table, watching her confident facade crumble as the weight of evidence mounted against her elaborate criminal enterprise. Sarah had hired an expensive attorney and maintained her victim narrative right up until the moment Jennifer Walsh took the witness stand with her forensic accounting analysis and professionally documented evidence of financial elder abuse. Watching my sister's face as Jennifer methodically destroyed every aspect of her defense strategy was both satisfying and heartbreaking. Satisfying because justice was finally being served. Heartbreaking because I was witnessing the complete moral collapse of someone I had once loved unconditionally. The digital evidence Jennifer had discovered proved devastating to Sarah's case. Email exchanges between Sarah and her attorney revealed her awareness that her actions constituted fraud, and text messages with Marcus showed how she had bought his cooperation by offering him $10,000 to change his testimony and discredit my allegations. The defendant's own communications demonstrate premeditated financial fraud, systematic elder abuse, and witness tampering. The prosecutor stated during his closing arguments, she exploited her dying mother's vulnerability, manipulated her grieving sister's trust, and corrupted family relationships to fund her own lifestyle at the expense of everyone who should have been able to rely on her integrity. When the judge delivered his verdict, Sarah's punishment exceeded even my hopes for complete justice. She was ordered to return the entire $75,000 she had stolen, plus interest and legal fees totaling over $30,000 additional. But the financial restitution was only the beginning of her consequences. Sarah received an 18-month prison sentence for elder financial abuse, which could not be reduced through plea bargaining because of the aggravating factors in her case, specifically her abuse of a dying family member and her systematic manipulation of estate planning processes. The judge's comments during sentencing revealed his disgust with her calculated exploitation of family trust during a period of grief and vulnerability. The defendant's crimes represent a profound betrayal of the most sacred family relationships and constitute some of the most morally reprehensible behavior this court has encountered, the judge stated. Her systematic abuse of her dying mother and manipulation of her sister's grief demonstrate a level of calculated cruelty that demands serious consequences. But perhaps more satisfying than Sarah's legal punishment was watching her social and professional world collapse as news of her crimes spread throughout our community. Her teaching position was terminated immediately upon her conviction, and her attempts to maintain her upgraded lifestyle crumbled as she lost access to stolen funds and faced overwhelming legal expenses. The house she had been living in our childhood home that she had illegally occupied while claiming it was still for sale was sold immediately to pay restitution, and Sarah was forced to move into a small apartment with her children while serving her sentence through work release programs. Marcus faced his own consequences for perjury and witness tampering, receiving probation and community service while being completely ostracized by family members who were disgusted by his mercenary betrayal of blood loyalty for money. His reputation in our extended family was permanently destroyed, and several relatives who had trusted him with financial matters immediately terminated those relationships. But the most meaningful aspect of this entire ordeal was discovering who my real family truly was. Not the people who shared my blood, but the individuals who stood by me when standing up for truth and justice required personal sacrifice and moral courage. Jennifer Walsh became not just a professional ally, but a genuine friend whose integrity and expertise had made justice possible. Mrs. Thompson, our elderly neighbor, had shown more loyalty and courage than my own cousin by testifying truthfully despite intimidation attempts from Sarah's attorney, even Dr. Roberts and Patricia Williams had demonstrated professional integrity by providing honest testimony about Sarah's suspicious behavior during Mom's final months. These relationships taught me that family is not just about genetics or childhood history. It is about shared values, mutual respect, and the willingness to support each other through difficult times without expecting personal benefit in return. The chosen family I built during this crisis proved more reliable and supportive than the blood relatives who had prioritized money over truth and self-interest over justice. 6 months after Sarah began serving her sentence, I used part of the recovered inheritance money to take the healing trip to Europe that her babysitting manipulation had originally prevented. But this time, the journey represented not just personal healing from Mom's death, but celebration of justice served and toxic family relationships finally severed. Standing on a hill overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, I felt Mom's presence in a way I had not experienced since her death. I knew she would be proud that I had fought for truth and accountability, that I had refused to let her final wishes be subverted by greed and manipulation, and that I had chosen integrity over family harmony when those values came into conflict. The legal victory also opened doors for helping other families facing similar situations. I began volunteering with elder abuse prevention organizations, sharing my story to help people recognize warning signs of financial manipulation and encouraging them to seek professional help when family members exhibit suspicious financial behavior. This experience taught me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for family is to hold them accountable for their actions, even when that accountability requires painful consequences and permanent relationship changes. Enabling criminal behavior in the name of family loyalty ultimately serves no one's long-term interests and prevents genuine healing from taking place. Looking back on this entire nightmare, I realized that Sarah's betrayal, while devastating at the time, ultimately freed me from toxic family dynamics that had been limiting my personal growth for years. Her criminal behavior forced me to develop independent self-advocacy skills and professional relationships that have enriched my life in ways I never could have anticipated. The money was important. It represented Mom's love and her desire to provide security for both her daughters. But the real treasure I gained from fighting Sarah's theft was discovering my own strength and refusing to be victimized by people who confused family loyalty with enabling criminal behavior. Today, I have genuine peace knowing that justice was served. Mom's wishes were honored and the truth prevailed despite elaborate attempts to bury it under manipulation and lies. Sometimes the hardest battles we fight are the ones that force us to choose between family harmony and personal integrity, but choosing integrity always leads to authentic relationships and genuine self-respect. As I finish sharing this story with all of you amazing viewers, I want to ask you something that comes from my heart. Have you ever experienced family betrayal that forced you to choose between keeping the peace and seeking justice? Have you had to make difficult decisions about holding family members accountable for behavior that hurt you or other people you love? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I know many of you have faced similar situations and your wisdom could help others navigating family karma and justice dilemmas. If this story resonated with you and gave you strength to stand up for what is right, please smash that like button and hit subscribe for more real-life stories about finding justice when people you trust betray that trust. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that they deserve better than being victimized by family members who mistake love for enabling criminal behavior. Thank you for taking this journey with me, and remember that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is refuse to accept unacceptable behavior, even from the people we love most. May you always have the courage to choose truth over comfort and justice over false peace.